I'd like to begin today's proceedings with a very powerful and very famous poem from Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habits, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action. Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
Welcome to Tagore Jayanti, a celebration of the life and contribution of Rabindranath Tagore, through songs and music composed by him and presentations on his work, including social reform, feminism, education, and nationalism. During his lifetime, Tagore was a towering figure of legendary proportions, not only within the bounds of his native Bengal or his beloved India, but to a considerable extent throughout the world. As a multifaceted genius and Renaissance man, he not only carried the literature and arts of Bengal, but by his inspiring words, his lyrically unequaled songs, his unstinting support of the cause of India's freedom during a long and turbulent phase of her history, he lifted Indian culture and the Indian psyche to an unprecedented level of revitalization. Tagore was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913. Quote, because of his profoundly sensitive, fresh, and beautiful verse, by which, with consummate skill, he has made his poetic thought, expressed in his own English words, a part of the literature of the West. Today we hope to celebrate Tagore in our own humble way through song, dance, and philosophy. All of Tagore's songs were originally written in his native Bengali language. We shall be presenting the meaning of each song in English for your appreciation. And we shall also present a few songs that have been translatable into Hindi and a dance based on a symphonic rendition of his music. We request you forgive us if we fail to measure up to the high standards of Rabindra Sangeet and treat this as an offering of love and respect. My name is Stuti Goswami and I'm co-president of the Hindu Students Council, along with my co-MC Aman. We're going to hope you enjoy today's events. Thank you.
The enthusiasm with which his work was greeted in the West was quite remarkable. Gitanjali, a selection of his poetry for which he got the Nobel Prize in 1913, was published in English translation in London in March that year, and by November it had already been republished 10 times when the award was announced. English poet William Butler Yeats wrote the introduction to his book, and I quote a few lines from it. I have carried the manuscript of these translations about with me for days, reading it in railway trains, on top of omnibuses and in restaurants. And I have often had to close it lest some stranger would see how much it moved me. These lyrics display in their thought a world I've dreamed of all my life long. So we're going to start with a few songs today, and Sudhi's going to introduce us the first song.
Tagore was born on the 25th of the month Baisakh, which falls on May 7th. On this day, his students and admirers began with a celebration of his birth. Hey Nuton, or O Invigorating One, is a song that celebrates Tagore's wisdom that is likened to the sun penetrating a mist. The song is a prayer asking for the illumination that was expressed by Tagore to also become apparent to us, or so we too may soak in his bliss.
দেখারি কারবার জন্মেরও প্রথম শুভক্ষণ হে নূতন তোমার প্রকাশ
feminism in education. So we're going to start the proceeding with our presentation on Tagore's philosophy on social reform. Tagore felt deeply about human condition, and in his essays, dramas, and novels, tried to inspire social change. The collective effort of Tagore and other stalwarts of his time, like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and others, have resulted in an India that is shorn of discrimination arising from one's caste to be used elsewhere in the world. For reform is a constant need of every society. Anand Jha from Department of Management, Science and Engineering is going to make this next presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome again on this wonderful occasion of Rabindranath Jayanti. I'll start with a quote from Tagore. When a simple or spiritual idea becomes rigidly elaborate in its construction, it supplants the very idea it should support, said Tagore. Today I'll be covering Tagore's contribution on the caste system, his fight against untouchability, and his views on science and rationality, and also his mode of bringing about social reform. Rabindranath Tagore was born in a priestly class, and that is the highest class in Indian culture. In spite of being born in the upper class, he protested against untouchability and the caste system. He wrote a lot of works against that, mainly through dramas, dance dramas, and songs. And two of his works are very prominent against the caste system, which is Gora and Chandalika. Gora is a monumental work in Bengali fiction. It's a novel set out in 19th century Bengal. And there's a Irish boy who is orphaned during the Sepoy Mutiny, and a Brahmin family adopts him, and they bring him up as his own son. Now he grows up in an environment when the freedom movement is very intense, and so he grows up hating the British. Not only that, every day he tries to preserve the purity of his upper class, so he follows a lot of traditions and tries not to deify himself. But towards the end of the story, his father reveals his true identity to him, and at that moment the world collapses. He realizes that he is no longer what he always thought himself to be. He sees man as man and experiences a new freedom, a freedom of seeing human beings which are not divided by narrow domestic walls. And a quote from the book when he realizes this: "Today I am really an Indian. In me there is no longer any opposition between Hindu, Muslim, and Christian. Today every caste in India is my caste. The food of all is my food." In his other work, Chandalika is an intense dance drama and Tagore's protest against untouchability. It is the story of a girl called Prakriti. She is the daughter of a Chandal. The caste Chandal in India actually cremates dead bodies, and they are the lowest. They are supposed to be the lowest in the caste system and considered as untouchables. And Prakriti grows up with this tremendous sense of inferiority and anguish, and is not allowed to play with other children in the village. She's not even allowed to buy flowers and bangles from the local vendors. And life goes on till one day a Buddhist monk called Anand, he walks into the village, and Prakriti is there by the well, and he asks her for water. She refuses. She says that I'm an untouchable, and the water that I give you will make you impure. Anand says, "The water which quenches one's thirst is pure water. Please share your water with me." Prakriti gives him water, but she also gives him her heart. This is the first time in her life somebody has treated her with respect and dignity. And she's filled with love and admiration for Anand. She then asks her mother Maya, who is a practitioner of magic, to cast a spell and get the Buddhist monk so that she could marry him. Now her mother protests. She says that this is misuse of her knowledge and power, but she insists, and her mother says okay. Now she casts a spell, and Anand, who is gone into the spiritual world, given up all his materialistic thoughts, he finds these thoughts coming back to him. And finally the cast does work, and he comes in front of Prakriti, but he's a different man now. And when Prakriti sees him in this form, she says to her mother, "Mother, what have you done to him? I did not want this man. Please give him the man I want, or return him back to where he was." Prakriti mother says that if I do that, I might die. Prakriti says, You've got to release him, even if it means risking your life. The mother agrees, and Anand is free. Through this novel, he tries to bring out the emotions of a young girl who, even though she belongs to a lower caste, she has the same human feelings and emotions, and yet society does not give her the right to experience that and live through it. Dramas like these actually force people in Bengal to search for humanity, and it was behind much of the social transformation that occurred during those periods in Bengal. Tagore was also one of the rare amalgams of a poet and a scientist. He was very, very rational, and his views on science often came into conflict with one of the greatest leaders of the Indian freedom struggle, Mahatma Gandhi. Tagore pressed for more room for reasoning and for a less traditionalist view, a greater interest in the rest of the world, and for more respect for science and objectivity in general. In fact, a very famous example most of you might know was during the 1934 earthquake in Bihar, where thousands of people were killed. And Gandhi says, "A man like me cannot but believe this earthquake is a divine chastisement sent by God for our sins, in particular the sense of untouchability. For me, there is a vital connection between the Bihar calamity and the untouchability campaign." Tagore, who equally hated untouchability and had joined Gandhi in many of his campaigns, says, "It is all the more unfortunate because this kind of unscientific view of natural phenomena is too readily accepted by a large section of our countrymen." And his conflicts with Gandhi on science and economic and social reforms are well known. Now, what do we learn from Tagore and his reform movement in Bengal? Although it is widely admired, the reform that went on in Bengal is yet to be replicated outside the state. So what did he do right so that we can actually take his reforms to other corners of the world when we deal with things which are not consistent with our code of ethics? First and foremost, Tagore did not stand outside the society he was trying to reform. He stood right at its center and criticized from the inside. He said, what is more important than how you say something or what you say is where you stand when you say it. When you connect and care for people, they will take your advice even if it is harsh. The so-called modern approaches of sanctions, rhetoric, and punitive action have not helped societies accelerate reform, but these are external measures. If anything, it has actually helped to alienate those whom we try to reform. Modern day management literature is finally now agreeing with age-old spiritual theory about the need to stop our mind from judging other people or groups, to stop treating them as objects and actually start treating them as people. And once we do that, we realize that we are on the same side of things and we are trying to solve hard problems together. This builds a relationship of trust and increases our odds of success. Yet, it is rarely done, as it is much harder to build a relationship of trust and then just to criticize from the other side. Finally, our biggest takeaway from Tagore's life is his constant focus on inspiring the society around him to rise up and realize their true potential. His most powerful messages were not in the form of lectures or speeches, but beautiful works of art and music, and we shall continue with that. Thank you.
We're going to continue with the songs. Tagore's poems exhibit a deep divine romance that stirs the heart of his reader. In one of his profound poems titled, and forgive me for my pronunciations tonight, but Amar Mata Nato, or Lower My Head, Tagore asserts the infinite potential of the self by suggesting that when one praises oneself, it is truly a belittling act, for we are capable of the infinite and have instead tried to take credit for a trivial, finite accomplishment. It is not so much humility, but insult to our own selves that should prevent us from heaping praise on ourselves. So we'll read the translation, the English translation. Lower my head beneath the dust of thy feet, drown my self-conceit in the depth of my tears. In order to glorify myself, I constantly insult my inner self. Dead tired I become, revolving around myself. May I not promote myself in any of my deeds. Fulfill thy mission, O Lord, through this life of mine. Grant me thy ultimate peace, thy permanent grace in life. Let the lotus heart feel thy presence as the shield of love. next one's called Bajilo Kahar Veena, and it's a beautiful song celebrating the divine musician, or God, who fills our hearts with a desire so tremendous that the river and forest feel it, the desire to know this musician.
As a matter of fact, we've had programs every year from 2001 to 2004 last year, hosted by Asha. The song we're going to sing is Bajilo Kahar Veena, translated by Rupshi.
Oh
Gore, Gon Gore, Hegel. So, from divine musician to divine singer, Tagore takes us on a journey of divine romance and professes total astonishment at the beauty with which the divine singer sings. In his heart, he wishes to sing like him, but chokes at his very first attempt. He finally gives up and weeps in failure and admiration. We bring to you a Hindi rendition of this song. तुम्ही कैसे सुर में गा रहे हो केवल
सुर में गा रहे बेगुनी मैं तो आवाज़ होके सुनूं केवल सुनूं तुम कैसे सुर में गा रहे बेगुनी सुर की आभाषाएं भुवन में सुर की हवा बहे गगन में सुर की आभाषाएं भुवन में सुर की हवा बहे गगन में पत्थर टूटे व्याकुल वेग में बहे जा रही सुर की सुर धुनी तुम कैसे सुर में गा रहे हे गुनी मैं तो आवाज़ होके सुनूं केवल सुनूं तुम कैसे सुर में गा रहे हे गुनी मन करता है वैसे सुर में गाऊं कंठ में मैं सुर खोज ना पाऊं मन करता है कैसे सुर में गाऊं कंठ में मैं सुर खोज ना पाऊं कहना क्या है कह दे कंठ रूंधे हार मान कर प्राण मेरे रोए कहना क्या है कह दे कंठ रूंधे हार मान कर प्राण मेरे रोए मुझ पर तूने डाले कैसे धंधे चाहू नहीं सुर की जान बुनी तुम कैसे सुर में गा रहे हे गुनी मैं तो आवाज़ होके सुनूं केवल सुनूं तुम कैसे सुर में गा रहे हे गुनी
Thank you. Tagore's female characters have been powerful, complex, and above all, human. From Changalika to Chitrangoda, Tagore has gone deep into the psyche of thinking. In Gora, considered to be the greatest novel of Bengali literature, the female characters rise up over a dogmatic society and show the men what true spirituality and humanity is about. Tagore was a strong believer in the concept of treating women as equals. Nipa Charya and Supriya Misra from Saheli, a South Asian women's alliance on campus, will present Tagore's contribution to feminism.
As Smriti mentioned, Supriya and I, Nipa, are both a part of Saheli, which is a women's alliance on campus for undergraduate South Asian women. And so we wanted to come here today to talk to you a bit about the intersections of feminism within Tagore's work and really understanding the role of the female.
So basically, as you guys have heard, Tagore had a wide variety of modes in which he presented his ideas through drama, through poetry, and through his stories, as well as the film renditions that we had later on. And so you can see the strong female characters he develops show his feminist views.
So today we're actually going to go, I think we're just going to drop the mic. We're actually going to discuss kind of three main topics today. First, we're going to talk about Tagore's work as a central aspect within all of his work. So Tagore, what's interesting is he uses many modes of artistry, whether it's the performing arts or music or drama or short story writing. So we want to cover that a little bit. We're going to then talk about the construction of the female heroine, both through the idea of humanizing women's power and showing feminine empowerment. I guess you can't hear me, so we'll go back to the mic. And finally, we'll talk about the idea of performing Rabindranath as a feminist construct. Basically, the idea that Rabindranath is a performer, or the music and the dance is being performed by females and being led by females, and thus performing Rabindranath is a feminist construct. So we wanted to talk a little bit about females in the limelight. The idea that in almost all of the modes of Rabindranath's work, females are kind of the central characters. So within short stories, there's many themes that are explored. Specifically in the short stories Three Patra, Gora, and then Jivitro Mrito. Sorry, Bengali speaker, then writing in English is hard to see. In Three Patra, the narrative is basically from the perspective of a woman who's writing a letter back to her husband who she's left. And in her discussions, she talks basically about the fact that there's a lot of injustice done to women, and women are not seen as equals within relationships and are almost seen as this kind of toy that has the duty of helping a man. In Jivito Mrito, the idea is, talks about the idea of shotidaho, which is, of course, the burning of the wife alongside her husband, which was a practice that happened about 200 years ago. So it talks about the idea of shotidaho and what that means within Bengali society. And then finally, Joke Bali, which was just adapted to film about a year ago, discusses issues relating to both shotidaho and the role of women in society. Also, in dance and drama, Rabindranath had a lot of dances, and he would actually choreograph dances to go along with his own music. There's two types of dance drama, Rittonatto and Kritinatto. So Kritinatto is actually the focus on songs, and within that, Shaponatona is one of the main feminist works. And within Rittonatto, which concentrates on acting, Shama and Takramada.
Okay, and also you guys have heard about the Rabindranath Sangeet already, which was his collection, the collection of all of Tagore's songs that he composed, and also his poetry, which was in the Gitanjali, which is what he won the Nobel Prize for. But in both of these, or in his writings in general, he really focused on humanity and the celebration of humanity as a whole, and then females as humans, as a part of this equal view of all people. And so within his writings and songs, you can see strong female portrayal. Likewise, just more females being involved and active was seen in his schools, which were the Visva Bharati and the Shanti which you guys are going to hear about more later. But basically in these schools, female performers were also given the opportunity to train and perform. And so you see that they also had strong opportunities to lead as females themselves.
So once again, the idea of this female heroine kind of being the strong leader within the central focus of Rabindranath's work, you kind of have two aspects. The idea of female emotion. The idea of humanism really comes to play in this, where women are seen not just as a secondary aspect to the story, but women are seen as being in the forefront, having mixed emotions, and having this basic sea of emotions within them. And then the second aspect is very much tied to women's liberation in terms of feminine empowerment. And one thing we want to discuss throughout our discussion is this question of liberation, which Rabindranath covers, which is that can society really accept this construct of the strong woman? The strong woman that Rabindranath has within all of his stories. Is society ready to accept that kind of woman?
So to discuss these issues, we really want to focus on one scene so you guys could have a better idea of it being portrayed. So we're looking at a film called Charulata, which is actually an adaptation based on one of Tagore's short stories called Nathan, I can't say it, sorry. There you go, which in English translates to The Broken Nest. And this was a film portrayal made by Satyajit Ray, which is probably Bengal's most famous director, and it was adapted in 1964, but set in 1870s when India was still under British rule. And so before we look at the scene, I just wanted to summarize the general story of the movie so you guys could have an idea what context it takes place in. The film focus is on the main character, a woman named Charu, who is, the subtitle of the movie is called The Lonely Wife, because basically her husband, Bhupati, is a very intellectual, political-minded man who's very focused on maintaining his printing press and publishing English language-based political newspapers. So he's so focused and engrossed in his work that he doesn't pay any attention to his wife. And she, because she's not allowed to leave the home, lacks that attention and feels really isolated. But her husband is not a cruel man or anything, and so he realizes that she needs attention and asks his younger cousin Amol to start working with her so that they can foster their interests in literature, the arts, and poetry. And so they start spending a lot of time together. And they're closer in age, and because Charu was married very young, and so they start, crossing the boundaries that they don't know exist between their friendship, and Charu starts feeling affection for Amol. And when he realizes that, he gets worried, because Bhupati really trusts him and takes him as his confidant. And also, actually, you see that Amol feels sort of challenged by Charu's growing intellectuality. And in the end, he just ends up leaving the household so that he can avoid conflict with both Charu and his cousin. And so what you see in this movie is that Charu gets to transcend her role as a wife because she starts writing and she starts developing her own intellectual capabilities. Furthermore, she actually surpasses Amol in her writing and in the one composition that she does. So you see that even though both the male figures in her life didn't actually have faith in her writing capabilities, she is able to express herself and thus transcends her initial role and develops herself as a person. So basically we want to see whether society would be willing, as Lika mentioned earlier, to accept this new woman that was emerging and that Satyajit Roy and Tagore portrayed.
Okay, so now we're going to show a specific video clip from Charulata. Within this video clip, what you'll basically see is, right now, as Supriya mentioned, there was the aspect of writing. And so Charu is actually challenged by Amol to start writing more about her own life experiences. And what happens now is that she's actually going to sit down and start writing. So she writes the story about her own experiences in a village. And then it's then, I guess we're going to have to find our seed selection. It's then taken to a printing press. So she actually writes this work. She doesn't think it's going to be that good, and it's published. And once it's published, Amol actually sees it. So we're going to see the confrontation between Amol and Charu in discussing the fact that she's just published her work. Okay. We had this queued up and ready, but as technology goes, you might get to hear a special preview song because it's sometimes difficult. Go to chapter 7. And one other thing I wanted to kind of point out when we see Satyajit Ray's film is that the writing of Rabindranath is very, very intricate, and especially in Bengali, some of the idea is that the language itself portrays so much. And so Satyajit Ray really tried to take the story of Nostronim, and a lot of the things, he doesn't even take the dialogue, but he just takes a lot of film shots of the different scenarios and scenes that are described in order to really do justice to them. So right now, Charu is thinking about the story she's going to write, so there's going to be a bit of a dream sequence.
দেখো 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 দেখো
তোমার লেখা বিশ্বনন্দ
ঠাকুরকে পালন পড়ে যায় এবার থেকে আমি সাজবো
বোঠান তোমার কি হয়েছে বোঠান তুমি কত ভালো লিখেছো তুমি তা জানো আমি যখন তোমাকে গ্রামের কথা লিখতে বলেছিলাম তখন আমি কল্পনাও করতে পারিনি তুমি এত ভালো লিখবে সত্যি বিশ্বাস করো আমি একদম বোকা বনে গিয়েছি এত সহজ এত স্বচ্ছন্দ তোমার লেখাটা মনে চলবে না বোঠান তোমায় লিখতে হবে আরো লিখতে হবে তাহলে তোমার এত গুণ
আমি আর লিখবো না আমি আর লিখবো
There's a bird, and so she's cooking, and then right after that, there's all these males in different roles, as gods and as also leaders in this village. And so, as we move on to the scene, we actually see several themes, but especially when Charu comes in to confront Omo, you saw her actually making the pawn and then bringing in the slippers. So there's this idea of female duty. So not only was she able to come in and create this work and write and have her work published, but then at the same time, she was also able to, fulfill her duties as this wife and, make slippers for him and also, get him his pawn regularly. In terms of female emotion, what you see, especially in that scene when she's crying and not saying a lot and just kind of sitting there and thinking, is that there's a tremendous amount of emotion going on within Charupada. It's almost a sea of emotion inside her in terms of how she feels for Alma. And a lot of it relates to this idea of love, respect. For the first time from Alma, who motivates her to be able to become a writer and to move forward and publish that work. It becomes an admiration that she, for the first time, is getting noticed and getting admired by someone. And so being treated as an equal and almost being treated as a human. And so through writing, that becomes her liberation. And it almost scares Amal to the point where he says within that scene, I didn't even imagine you would surpass me in your writing. And so it becomes liberation and also equality and surpassing that. And also you'll see in further scenes if you watch the movie, Charu goes on, her husband actually sees the literary work and had no idea that she was writing this. And later on, his newspaper is suffering, and she mentions to him on the beach that why don't we work together on a paper, and it can have political stuff, and I can also write things, and it can be Farsi and Bengali and English. And it takes him a long time to think, well, why would I, incorporate you into my writing when you're doing this kind of trivial? And so at the end of the film, I was going to pan in on the scene, but what I just wanted to describe is Satyajit Ray shows at the end that after all of this and after they find out Mama has left, Charu's husband goes to reach out his hand to Charu, and there's a screenshot that just ends with them almost touching hands, but just like this. So the idea is that through liberation, still we haven't gotten quite there yet, and that no matter what, she's still not going to be seen as an equal. And it makes you kind of question also within society, have we gotten that far yet? And so this film basically discusses, especially in the 1870s when this was written, the emergence of the modern woman in kind of upper class of colonial India. There was definitely kind of this role of this woman who no longer was cooking and cleaning because she had servants, but was still supposed to serve kind of these duties as a loving wife and a doting wife. But at the same time, she had everything taken care of for herself. So embroidery and writing was pretty much the way she kept herself occupied. So finally, we wanted to talk a bit about performing Rabindranath.
So as you've seen, Tagore writes about very strong female characters, but that means that when his work is performed, you also have to have strong female characters in these roles. And so what you saw during this time was an emergence of great performers, teachers, musicians, and actresses who were all playing strong female leads and therefore asserting their own femininity. Just to mention a couple of people, one of the strongest, most known people of the Rabindranath Sangeet was a lady named Suchita Mitra, who basically shaped the way it was viewed and approached. And she learned it in the Shantiniketan, where she studied when she was younger. So you see that by being exposed to Tagore's teaching methods and then being able to perform his work, she was able to develop herself as a strong female character. Also, you see that the females playing the roles in these films later on in the 1950s and 1960s were also given the opportunity to play strong female roles. And so the actress who plays Charu, Madhavi Mukherjee, is also seen in a couple of other Satyajit Roy's films. And so you see that these actresses are becoming leaders, are defining what women can do for all Indian women across the nation who are watching these films. And so you see that not only does he portray them, but then women get to express these views themselves.
And so the idea of having women involved is very much alive with this idea of performing Rabindranath. If you look at Shantiniketan and Gitovitan even now, there's so many leaders, as Supriya mentioned, Suchitra Mitra. Also, Konika Bandyopadhyay is kind of attributed as the woman who's kept the tradition of Rabindranath Sangeet alive and has also been able to really shape it so that you have a lot of modern singers, Ridwana Chaudhuri and others, that are kind of leading the way to spreading this and making it an intrinsic part of Bengali culture. So finally, we wanted to talk about the fact that from these perspectives, especially seen in this movie, the idea of a woman as an equal becomes a humanist construct that's part of all of Rabindranath's work. Woman is seen not just as someone with emotions, and by showing that, the woman is a human. And so and what I wanted to point out is this role of women is also very intrinsic to kind of Bengali heritage. And also if you look at Hinduism, Bengalis traditionally do celebrate female goddesses. And this idea of the role of woman as mother, and also in Tantric culture, women as being the central figure for spirituality, and women being kind of the center of the universe, is intrinsic to Bengal and really is brought socially to the limelight through Rabindranath's work. And so one thing that's interesting about this film, Jagulata, is that people say that it's actually a retrospective of Tagore's own life. When he wrote the story, he actually had spent some time with his brother as he was a young college student, and really motivated his brother's wife to take on things and to take on writing. So it's kind of a story about him and his own life when he was younger, and then he, of course, left when he saw how this situation was going. But within that story of Charulata, the idea is that he really did, as a person, motivate this woman to to take on and come as her own as a strong female character. But when we talk about this idea of a humanist figure, the question that comes to mind, both in India, in Bengal, and within the world, is the world still yet able to accept Tagore's vision of this strong and liberated woman? And so I wanted to just end with a quote. This is from the story Jivito Mrito, which is a story basically about Shotidaho. So the central female character actually is going to be burned, but she escapes. And later on, she, after everything she goes through, she ends up committing suicide. And so the end of the story, the last line in the actual novel is, Kadombiri Moria Roman, Poriro Jeshe Morena Nai. So the idea is that Kadombiri commits death to prove that she was alive. And so really the idea that I wanted to point out is that without equality and justice, is there really life? And so ultimately, because in order to prove that she was alive, she had to commit suicide. So what is equality and what is justice, and how can one be a human unless they are treated as such? Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa and Supriya, for those enlightening words. And I'm sure all of us, our next song, Shuniya Shagore, connects to the Divine Mother, the loving idea of the endless, which the poet senses while walking by the dark blue ocean of life. And we have, again, Aditya and Ashidharam joining us for this song.
This is a song that talks about memories. Memories as we go down the road of life.
They have come from the group of Rabindranath Sangeet enthusiasts here in the Bay Area, just to express their enthusiasm for Rabindranath Tagore. So, next we have some dances here. Tagore songs have profound meanings that stir the heart of the listener. However, for those who are not familiar with the Bengali language, that often precludes them from the music, which is equally beautiful. Dr. Partha Ghosh, a music-loving scientist from United Kingdom, has created a rare and well-received title, Tagore in Symphony. In our next program, Aditi Kapoor will dance to portions of this music as we move through different seasons. This is my prayer to thee, my Lord. Strike. Strike at the root of penury in my heart. Give me the strength lightly to bear my joys and sorrows. Give me the strength to make my love fruitful in service. Give me the strength never to disown the poor or bend my knees before insolent might. Give me the strength to raise my mind high above daily trifles, and give me the strength to surrender my strength to thy will. Next we have another song sequence, dance and song sequence by Aditi and Riddhi. And this is to the Hindi rendition of the song Ekla Chalo Re.
चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला रे ओ तू चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे यदि लौट जाए सभी उड़ी उड़ी भागी लौट जाए सभी यदि गहन डगर चले दिखे मुड़ के ना कोई यदि गहन डगर चले दिखे मुड़ के ना कोई तब कंठ को तो रक्त रंगे चरण करे दल अकेला रे वो तो रक्त रंगे चरण करे दल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे यदि दीप ना धरे उड़ी उड़ी ओ भगे दीप ना धरे यदि झड़ी अंधेरा में घर बंद सब करे यदि घड़ी अंधेरा में घर बंद सब करे तब वज्र शिखा से तो अपनी अस्थि जला और जल अकेला रे वो तो अपनी अस्थि जला और जल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे फिर चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला रे ओ तू चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे तेरी आवाज पे कोई ना आए तो फिर चल अकेला रे
Love poem. Ami chini ko chini tumhari ko dekshni. Translated to I love you, I so know you. I know you, I so know you, O lady of the foreign lands. He wrote this in 1895 while still in India, On his travels to South America, he spent considerable time in Argentina, where he met Argentine poetess Victoria Ocampo. Tagore called Victoria by her Bengali equivalent, Bijoya, and dedicated his collection to, quote, the lotus palms of Bijoya, end quote. Bijoya encouraged Tagore to paint, which he took up at the age of 70. The two interacted over many years, and Bijoya translated many of Tagore's works. Within a few days of meeting Bijoya, Tagore handed her this poem, Amichini Gochini.
শারদ প্রাতে তোমায় দেখেছি মাধবী রাতে তোমায় দেখেছি হৃদয় মাঝারে ওগো বিদেশিনী আমি আকাশে পাতিয়া শুনেছি শুনেছি তোমারই গান আমি তোমারে শোভেছি প্রাণ গো বিদেশিনী ভুবন ভূমিয়া শেষে আমি এসেছি নূতন দেশে আমি অতিথি তোমারি দ্বারে ও গো বিদেশিনী ও গো বিদেশিনী আমি চিনি গো চিনি তোমারে ও গো বিদেশিনী তুমি থাকো সিন্ধু পারে ও গো বিদেশিনী ও গো বিদেশিনী
Isn't that a powerful poem by Tagore, where he asserts that God needs man to express himself? And I will go. Thus it is that thy joy in me is so full. Thus it is that thou hast come down to me. O thou Lord of all heavens, where would I be if I were not? Thou hast taken me as the partner of this web. In my heart is the endless play of thy delight. In my life, thy will is ever taking shape. And for this, thou who art the King of Kings, hast decked thyself in beauty to captivate my heart. And for this, thy love loses itself in love of thy lover, and there art thou seen in the perfect union of the two. Our next song, Agudera Porashmuni, is a deeply emotional entreaty to help us surrender ourselves to the divine. It is an admission of our weakness and a prayer that asks us and the divine to not allow our weakness to rule us.
প্রদীপ
towards establishing an international university to foster the Eastern arts. This resulted in the creation of Vishwa Bharati, or International University of India, in the beautiful town of Shantiniketan, which translates to abode of peace. Tagore's standard for a people's progress was measured with education, especially the education of women. Vishwa Bharati today is engaged in preserving the cultural and artistic legacy of the East and is a point of confluence for international students. And Rashmi and Tara will now present to us Tagore's contribution to the field of education.
I will talk a little bit about Tagore's views on education. And his philosophy on life are actually practically inseparable. For him, education meant three things really: truth, harmony with nature, and freedom. And these are really reflected in his philosophy of life as well. To emphasize, the three main things for him were really freedom of thought, freedom of movement, and freedom to create. With freedom of thought, he really meant that children should not be told that this is right and wrong, that they should be allowed to discover things on their own. They shouldn't have to follow a pre-structured and predetermined curriculum, and they should really feel free to express their own ideas and thoughts. Freedom of movement was really his idea about children being able to explore nature as they learned, and not being told that this is how things should be. And freedom to create, really, something that he explored through art, drama, and music. Quote, "To discover freedom of outlook, the mind must soar into the upper air of abstraction, swim into the very heart of the infinite, for the mere joy of it, and then fly back to its nest in the world." A lot of Tagore's views on education really derived from his own personal experience in school. He hated school, and actually, as some of you might know, he dropped out of school at about the age of 14 or 15. For him, school did two things. It alienated the child from nature, and it alienated the child from itself. What Tagore meant when he said that the child is alienated from nature by the standard school structure is really that the child begins to believe that this is nature, this is what I'm supposed to conquer, and it stops being an equal relationship. There is a very clear hierarchy that gets established. And Tagore thought that that was harmful, that would dog the child's learning process. And about alienating the child from itself, because a standard school gives you a standard curriculum in which you're examined, and there's this emphasis on uniformity. And Tagore thought that that kind of ruins a child's innate and own abilities. So the standard school really alienated the child from nature and from itself. And this is something that Tagore wrote, and it pretty much also describes what Tagore was trying to get at through the previous two slides, through the previous 2 points, which is that a child has to have more than just intellect thrown into the child. And so a mind or logic is like a knife or blade. It makes the hand bleed that uses it. Given this, Tagore started his own school, Shantiniketan, in which he wanted people to feel open, free, spontaneous, and and be in the middle of nature, live with the teacher, learn from the teacher, and not feel bound by any particular defined relationship or notion of what is right and wrong. Nature was to be an unending source of learning, and the teacher was to be the friend, guide, and bring out the most of the child. Specifically, Tagore was against having things like desks, chairs, and classrooms because he felt that that kind of intimidates a child. And so the child should be able to organize his own learning environment. So for Tagore, education was going to be gradual and progressive. It would begin with the training of instincts and emotions, self-reliance and communal cooperation. He expected children, he thought that children should be involved in daily work such as sweeping, washing dishes, cooking, and gardening. He thought this would build character and allow children to grow well. And it was only after, and these were through, and there was a lot of art, music, and play along with this. Tagore really emphasized the use of Bengali as the medium of instruction in Bengal, or otherwise the mother tongue. because he felt that a child would learn best if he was, or he or she was free to speak in a language he was familiar with. Another thing that Tagore did was really oppose religious instruction in schools, because he felt that that kind of gave children a specific idea of things, which was completely unnecessary in an environment of learning.
So in 1921, he founded this university called Vishwabharati, and it encompassed the systems that he set up at Shantiniketan. And it was to be a new kind of university with the motto, Yatra Vishwam Bhavatyeka, all the world in one place. He wanted the university to emphasize the need for a mutually beneficial relationship between the East and the West, sort of a meeting place of many different ideas. He wanted the university to sort of help Indians express themselves, share their own culture with the West, and learn new things from other people that came from around the world. He wanted it to be a school in which men of different civilizations and traditions may learn to live together. So, if we look at what he set up and what's happened today, the freedom sort of has dwindled away. You can see at Shantiniketan that there are regular school hours, standardized curricula, and examinations that have come back. And basically, it's much like any other school you see today. But what can we learn from what Tagore tried to set up? He really wanted us to be able to think about things and values and systems that we sort of accepted uncritically. He wanted us to question ourselves, what really should progress in civilization be, and how important are power and material success to true development. He wanted education to bring together physical, intellectual, and spiritual aspects of our lives. And we end our presentation with a little quote from him. Respect all the differences that are real, yet remain conscious of our oneness. And to know that perfection of unity is not uniformity, but in harmony. Tagore in creative unity.
I boasted amongst men that I had known you. They see your pictures in all works of mine. They come and ask me, who is he? I know not how to answer them. I say, indeed, I cannot tell. They blame me and go away in scorn. And you sit there smiling. I put my tales of you into lasting songs. The secrets gushes out of my heart. They come and ask me, tell me all your meanings. I say, who knows what they mean? They smile and go away in utter scorn. And you sit there smiling. Tagore chides God in our next hymn for standing at the other end of his song and not crossing over into his heart. In this emotional song, he asks God, when will you pick up my flute and play it yourself? In our daily lives, we are playing the flute as an offering to God. But when will come a time when God will pick up our flute and play it? Are we ready to let it happen? So I invite a team of wonderful singers for the next song, which is Dariye Ache Tumi Amar.
Amar shur guri
Klanti Meri Shama Karo Prabhu. It is a stirring request to God to forgive our fatigue, for we've tried really hard to follow the path and have been unable to keep up. We have failed in too many ways, but not in our intentions. We ask the God to recognize this and show us compassion.
Shama karo Prabhu, पंथ में पीछे पीछे रहूं कभी, याति मेरी क्षमा करो प्रभु। हृदय मेरा थार थार कांपे आज रहे रहे, यही वेदना क्षमा करो क्षमा करो क्षमा करो प्रभु। पंथ में पीछे पीछे रहूं कभी, याति मेरी क्षमा करो प्रभु। मेरी विनता क्षमा करो प्रभु, पीछे देखो मुड़ के जो कभी, मेरी विनता क्षमा करो प्रभु। दीनता पे रुद्र ज्वाला सूखे तेरी पूजा माला, यही प्लानता क्षमा करो क्षमा करो क्षमा करो प्रभु। पंथ में पीछे पीछे रहूं कभी, याति मेरी क्षमा करो प्रभु।
The song to inspire the leaders of this time, which is now a timeless masterpiece. Jyoti Tar Dakshine has been the favorite song of great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, to name a few. It translates to, if no one heeds your call, then continue on your path alone. You heard the Hindi rendition of it when Aditi and group danced to that song. Its intensity and emotion is infectious, and it never fails to inspire us when we are engaged in difficult endeavors that we believe in, even when no one else supports us. This song manifests the divine power within us and has a catchy beat that raises our spirits. And I'll need Ajay here.
একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে, যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি কেউ কথা না কয়, ওরে ওরে ও অভাগা কেউ কথা না কয়, যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায়ে সবাই করে ভয়, যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায়ে সবাই করে ভয়, তবে পরাণ খোলে ও তুই মুখ ফুটে তোর মনের কথা একলা বলো রে। যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি সবাই ফিরে যায়, ওরে ওরে ও অভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায়, যদি গহন পথে যাবার কালে কেউ ফিরে না চায়, যদি গহন পথে যাবার কালে কেউ ফিরে না চায়, তবে পথের কাটা ও তুই রক্ত মাথা চরণ তলে একলা দলো রে। যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। যদি আলো না ধরে, ওরে ওরে ও অভাগা আলো না ধরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে, তবে বজরা নদে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে। যদি তোর ডাক শুনে যদি কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে
Thank you for that wonderful song. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the last part of our presentation today, Tagore on nationalism. Tagore's contribution to freedom movement of India is very well known. He was an inspiration to both Mahatma Gandhi and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in their respective endeavors. Yet he differed from all leaders of his time in his political views, which were entirely founded on humanism. His definition of freedom has challenged most free nations even today. Soumya Raha from Management Science and Engineering will present Tagore's contribution to nationalism in India.
This is a fantastic picture and a very interesting time. Tagore was meeting with Mahatma Gandhi in Shanti together, and Anand has explained to you how Tagore had differences of opinion with Mahatma Gandhi. I'll be going a little bit into some of those differences and how their relationship was during the national movement. Pretty much all of the freedom fighters in India were inspired by Tagore, and they used his songs to launch into the movement. But it's really interesting to see what Tagore himself had to say about nationalism. Before we go in, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on his biggest stamp on India. He composed the national anthem of India, and he actually has the unique distinction of also having composed the national anthem of Bangladesh. There is no other individual in history who has composed anthems of two different countries. And of course, he didn't think that he was going to do that. It's just that when these two nations got independence, they adopted his songs. So the Indian national anthem is called Jana Gana Mana, and I'll quickly go into its meaning. So Jana Gana Mana is less of a national song as it is a spiritual song, and as in it indicates that India is a land of great spirituality. So the first line says, Jana Gana Mana Vinayaka Jaya He Bharata Bhagya Vidhata. Glory to the ruler of the minds of all the people of India, the controller of India's destiny. And there is absolutely no doubt that the controller of India's destiny, just as the controller of any nation's destiny, is God, or the collective will of the people, if you are an atheist. Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha, Dravida, Utkala, Banga, Vindhya, Himachal, Yamuna, Ganga, Uchha, Jalasi, Taranga, Tava Shiva Name Chari. These lines collectively indicate that all the people, and he uses he tries to paint a geographical picture of what India was like then, from Punjab in the west, Punjab, Sindh and Gujarat, to Maharashtra, to the southern lands, to Orissa and Bengal in the east, from the Vindhyas and the Himalayas in the north, to the dancing waters of the Yamuna and Ganga. All of them are aroused by your name, the name of God. Tava Shubha Ashish Mange Gahe Tava Jaya Gatha. They all seek your blessing and they all sing to your glory. Jana Gana Mangala Dayaka Jaya He Bharata Bhagya Vidhata. This is glory to the well-wisher of the sea of humanity, the controller of India's destiny. Jaya He, Jaya He, Jaya He, Jaya 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 He. Glory to thee, glory to thee, glory to thee. Now, this song is really interesting because it was written at the time of George V's arrival to India, and the British, actually the International Congress, requested Tagore to write a little song in celebration of George. And Tagore was deeply insulted by this request because all his life he had spent, and you've seen some of his songs, so deeply spiritual, and so he just couldn't imagine how people could have requested him to write a song for George V. So he wrote this song as a protest. He wrote this for the Indian people, and actually they sang it. George didn't realize it. So then of course some people got confused and they thought that he wrote it for George V, and he actually clarified once to somebody that this is clearly a song to God and it's not for George V. Seeks for any George. Now I'm going to go into some of the relationship between Tagore and Gandhi. So Gandhi, this is a very famous quote actually. Someone asked him, so what do you think of Western culture? And he replied, I think it's a good idea. And you have to remember that at that time, people were making a lot of nasty comments about Eastern culture, and he was really, he probably wanted to make a point. But this kind of a statement would never come out of Tagore, because while he severely opposed British rule, he did not oppose Western civilization. And in fact, he thought Eastern civilization had a lot to learn from the West. So he made a very unique distinction, and at no point would he allow national interest to come before his spiritual interest. So he stressed synthesis of cultures, and this is a famous quote. He wrote this letter to his son-in-law who had come to the US to study agriculture. He says, "To get on familiar terms with the local people is a part of your education. To know only agriculture is not enough. You must know America too. Of course, if in the process of knowing America, one begins to lose one's identity and falls into the trap of becoming an Americanized person, contemptuous of everything Indian, it is preferable to stay in a locked room." And this is really interesting, because you slowly begin to notice that we are getting to some sort of a contradiction in his views, where on the one hand, he believes spirituality is greater than nationality, and on the other hand, he is talking about Indianhood. So he rebelled strongly against the nationalist form of the independence movement. And Amartya Sen, Nobel laureate in economics, he writes about Tagore. He was afraid that a rejection of the West in favor of an indigenous Indian tradition was not only limiting in itself, it could easily turn into hostility to other influences from abroad, including Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, and most importantly, Islam. Believe it or not, he also criticized patriotism. And it's amazing what he says. He says, "Patriotism cannot be a final spiritual shelter. My refuge is humanity. I will not buy glass for the price of diamonds, and I will never allow patriotism to triumph over humanity as long as I live." And that makes us really think about what we mean by patriotism, and it's a question of relative. It's like, yes, patriotism is better than standing and watching your people being killed, but between patriotism and humanity, there is no question that humanity comes first. He further writes, in fact, to his novel, The Home of the World, "I am willing to serve my country, but my worship I reserve for right, which is far greater than my country. To worship my country as a god is to bring a curse upon it." At the same time, you can see that there were severe differences of opinion between Gandhi and Tagore. But Tagore, at the same time, he popularized the term Mahatma. He was the one who said, "This man is a Mahatma, he's a great human being." He writes, "Great as he is as a politician, as an organizer, as a leader of men, as a moral reformer, he is greater than all these as a man, because none of these aspects and activities limits his humanity. They are rather inspired and sustained by it." And if you think about how people express differences of opinion in our modern age, it's amazing that you can actually say these things about somebody you completely disagree with. And you can actually go beyond their stated position and see their humanity. And I think we have a lot to learn, our modern leaders, to bring in some of these aspects when we interact with each other. Gandhi and Nehru both appreciated the role Tagore played in the national freedom struggle, although they had serious differences. So now we're getting into the idea of freedom, and freedom the way we know it. I mean, we're always fighting for freedom, we're helping other countries fight for their freedom. So it's really interesting to ask, what is freedom? And the way we understand, the way we look at freedom is very different from what he saw. And he says, when freedom is not an inner idea which imparts strength to our activities and breadth to our creations, when it is merely a thing of external circumstance, it is like an open space to one who is blindfolded. That is a pretty deep definition. And then he also compares India with the West. And he says, the civilization of the West has in it the spirit of the machine which must move. And to that blind movement, human lives are offered as fuel, keeping up the steam power. He wrote this 100 years back, and I wonder if it still applies. And he writes about India. The present civilization of India has the constraining power of the mold. It squeezes living man in the grip of rigid regulations. And he was writing about a time when people had all kinds of rules in society. This is what you should do because that's the done thing, and you shouldn't do that, and all kinds of, it's like you're being strangled. Even though you're fighting for freedom, even though you're a free country, if those same regulations continue, then what sort of freedom have you obtained? And this applies to any free nation in the world, and this is something we always have to be vigilant about. So it's interesting, he criticizes both the East and the West. He says, without any jingoism, he says these are the problems. He says in both of these traditions, life is offered up to something which is not life. The West is continually producing mechanical power in excess of its spiritual control, and India has produced a system of mechanical control in excess of its vitality. And now I'd like to go back to the poem with which we began this evening, which Aman read out, Freedom. So it's really interesting to remind ourselves what he thinks of freedom. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country away. And I would suggest that this is an acid test for any free nation to ask when you want to determine if you're truly free. This is, I think, what freedom really means. So then the question is, what is India? And when he wrote the letter to his son-in-law, why did he tell him that it's better to stay locked in your room if you're going to be contemptuous of India? So he obviously had some ideas of India, and are they the same ideas that we have today? So the first category of Indians is the Indian, and I bring this category from the call center folks. It's like when you ask for customer service, they ask you, so could you tell us your ethnicity or race? I'm still not clear between the two terms, but I said, I'm Indian. Oh, are you American Indian? And I said, no, I'm Indian. that kind of makes it clear. So if you're from India and you're an Indian citizen, then you're Indian. And then you have the Indian American identity. So you had parents from America, and then you have Indian from settled in any other part of the world. And then you have the Indian subcontinent, which is even more interesting because when people are in the subcontinent close to each other, they have pretty negative things to say about each other, and as far as they're concerned, life started in 1947. But after they leave their countries and they meet somewhere else, they acknowledge their history, their traditions, and their legacy. So, and they have no objection to saying that they are part of the Indian subcontinent and the greater glory of whatever. So what is this Indian thing to which we all want to be attached to, which no government has to force down our throat, which we would like to be associated with? And that is the Indian ethos. And Tagore describes this in his Nobel Prize acceptance speech. I do not think that it is the spirit of India to reject anything, reject any race, reject any culture. The spirit of India has always proclaimed the ideal of unity. The ideal of unity never rejects anything, any race, or any culture. It comprehends all. And it has been the highest aim of our spiritual exertion to be able to penetrate all things with one soul, to comprehend all things as they are, and not to keep out anything in the whole universe, to comprehend all things with sympathy and love. This is the spirit of India. India is there to unite all human races. And I think this is the definition that we all, as an audience here and as Indian citizens, Indian Americans, we can take forward into this century. So it's something that like you take away from Tagore. And finally, this is an international hymn. I mean, we have national anthems which some of us would like to sing and others would have objections to, and everyone has their own little thing. But it's high time that we think about an international anthem, and I'm not sure if this is it, but this is probably a suggestion. This is from the Upanishads, and Tagore actually gave music to this. Unfortunately, I don't have it. I'm going to play it for you. So it goes like this: Shrinvantu Vishwe Amritasya Putraha Vedaha Metam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat Tumeva Viditva Amritva Vedi. Heart, O children of the immortal, listen, O divine beings. I have known him, the one beyond all illusion. Beyond darkness, ever resplendent, know him, look at him, that's the only way to transcend death. So this is something to think about who our identity is. And with that, I'm done with my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. It's going to end this now. Tagore always maintained that the nation is all right as long as it's subservient to the human. The soul comes first and then the nation. It's the main thing to come out of this. Hence, it's only fitting that we end our evening with a hymn to the ageless and timeless soul that lives within all of us and hence unites mankind. And this beautiful hymn brings out the eternal play of our soul, and it will be sung in both Bengali and Hindi.
Tomorrow সাথী আমার ঘরে রাতি আমার ঘরে তারা তোমার হলো শুরু আমার হলো সারা
तेरे जज्बाती तेरे घर साथी मेरे यहाँ रात्रि मेरे राह तारा तेरा ये अर्थ है ये मेरा
তোমার আছে ডাগা আমার আছে জল তোমার বসে থাকা আমার চলাচল
तेरा है किनारा मेरी जलधारा रहना तेरा निश्चल मेरा ये चलाचल
তোমার হাতে আমার হাতে তোমার মনে আমার ভয় ভারা তোমার হলো শুরু আমার হলো সারা
ये जो तेरे घर में शय हो मेरे घर में भय है तेरे मन में मैं हूँ भयहारा तेरा ये अर्थ है ये मेरा
Okay, as Somik reminded me, that is a complicated song, so I will try to impart wisdom on it. Okay, here we go. Our inner soul is ageless, timeless, undying, unborn. So says the Bhagavad Gita. It is indestructible. The outer manifestation of the soul occurs when it gets incarnated in a body, or according to the Gita, gets tied to the gunas. Sattva, Raja, Tama, and the Ripos, Kam, Krodh, and Moh. It assumes a distinct identity with a body, name, etc., which are transient and not permanent. The inner and outer souls are nothing but different manifestations of the same self that has evolved from the eternal existence and consciousness we call God. The duality of you and I continue not only in the outer world, but also within ourselves. Thank you.
With that, we come to the end of our presentations, and I'd like to thank our presentation teams, the lead organizers, Somik Raha, singers, Rupshi Mitra, Sanita Datta, Nikhil Ravi, Anita, Bhavna Hariharan. Accompanying them on the tabla, Abhishek Bhavna. Our choreographer Aditi Kapoor. For the presentations, Anand Jha, Deepa Acharya, Supriya Mishra, Rashmi Raghu, Sara, and Tom. With the camera, we had Karthik Nagaraj. and MC Stuti and myself.